Well, welcome to today. We're recording with a very special guest and friend of ours, Ed from New Zealand.
Come on.
How good. And we have Mercedes here as well, a Highlands youth pastor. And we're going to talk all things youth ministry. For you, whether you're a youth pastor, whether you're volunteering, you're just leading it, you've got a heart for a youth ministry in the church that you're at and you want to start it. Like, we want to help equip you and at least get some conversations rolling. And in the future, have some questions come in and we'll talk to Ed again to set another time up, even for maybe Zoom or some form of way of getting answers that we might have from this. But we really hope to start the conversation, get you equipped for 2025, start moving the ball down a bit further the field in your youth ministry, because we want to see more young people set on fire for Jesus, encounter Him, free from the things of the past and their future. That's the reason you're into youth ministry, right? And so we want to help you do that the best. So Ed, from New Zealand, which is great.
That's right. It is a great
Arise Church.
Yeah.
Overseeing that youth ministry with your wife Vic for a few years now.
Yeah, about 7 years now.
7 years.
Yeah.
Tell us a bit about Arise Youth, just to give us a bit of context.
Yeah, cool. So we have 11 locations of Arise. And so our role is across New Zealand, we work with a team of youth pastors. We run our combined summer camps and things like that. And so for our youth ministry, it kind of looks a bit different in every location. So we might have our larger campuses, we've got a couple of hundred kids, but then we could go anywhere between that and about 10 kids. Yeah. So it probably looks a little bit different for us in terms of working with the team. We're working with youth ministries of all kind of different sizes. Yeah.
Awesome. Which is helpful today, because INC is made up of youth ministries of all different sizes and stages, which is great. And he's starting a ministry like he did last year called For This City. Yeah. I'll butcher any kind of attempt of explaining this. I'll undersell it. But
yeah. Well, it's been an amazing journey for us here. We started For This City out of a bit of a God word at the end of 2023. We kind of had a heart and a hunger to see youth ministry come together. So, I mean, for context, Australia has amazing things like Youth Alive. New Zealand has, over the history of youth ministry, had some moments, things like Youth for Christ, Get Smart, some pretty incredible things. But in the last few years, the church and the next generation probably felt like everyone was in kind of silos. Yep. And so we felt, alongside a few youth pastors, we had a real heart to bring the next generation together. So we've started that. I'm doing that full time now. We've seen God do some incredible things, working with about 50 different youth ministries now in 3 different cities, kind of building into a few more this year. And essentially our heart is we want to bring the next generation together. We want to support local youth pastors, local youth ministries, build together and see a new generation one for the kingdom.
How good.
Yeah, so it's been awesome. It's been an awesome journey.
So good.
It's been a wild journey, but it's been an awesome journey.
Yeah, well, I'm just starting as well, isn't it?
Yeah.
For This City sounds so exciting, what you guys are doing. But brilliant communicator as well. You preached here at Highlands for us this weekend so far, and it's been great.
Nice. Hopefully I don't tank the night one
looking
tonight.
Forward to
there you go.
One more to go. And just been at summer camp as well. So all you guys are youth at summer camp at Noosa, been raving. So thank you so much for what you've already sown in, and no doubt will help so many people here as well. But what I'm fascinated by is youth ministry has been kind of your main thing for a few years now, and starting this thing to help equip youth pastors, youth ministry is a big part of what you do. So you've talked to a lot and you've been in the game for a bit and oversee a heap of them. What do you find is the consistent kind of challenge that a youth pastor is facing at the moment, or that the most common questions that you've been getting?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think there's definitely a few things that is I've even found in my own ministry, working with young people and working with youth pastors. A lot of young people are struggling with mental health challenges. That is far more prevalent for the next generation than probably it was when I was in high school. And I think a lot of youth pastors are feeling like they want to be equipped around that, because young people are coming in with facing some pretty heavy stuff. And for a youth pastor, a lot of young people will, I kind of shared a bit about this at camp, but they'll attach their struggles to their identity. And so then their struggle becomes part of their identity. Okay. And so a lot of youth pastors that we're working with, they've got amazing young people coming into their youth ministries, but they're starting to believe that, these labels or these diagnoses that were given to them are now, well, that's just who I am and I'll never get free of that. Yeah. And so I think, but I think on the flip side of that, there is a greater hunger in young people to get free. They're wanting something more. Yep. And so I think that's something we've really been noticing in New Zealand. And I think it's probably the same the world over to varying degrees, because young people are coming in with an openness and a hunger to meet with God. I think a lot of these kind of challenges though that young people are facing are really boiling down to their lack of identity in Christ. I think that's what I've noticed, whether it be issues around gender and sexuality, whether it is things with their mental health challenges, they're wanting to know, man, who am I really? And they've begun to believe lies. But I think what is encouraging is there's an incredible opportunity to speak truth into them and get them free from these things, but also speak truth and life into them. And I think something that we've really just been really noticed and really, I guess, encouraged our leaders, and I've just seen the value of, is going on that journey with someone. Like, of course, there are moments where young people just get free in an instant. Like, I've been in so many camps, so many services, prayed for so many young people, and the things that they've been struggling with gone in a moment. But a lot of the time, that journey does take time. A lot of the time, it's walking the journey with a young person faithfully. It's showing up for them. It's being present in their life. It's valuing what they care about. It's showing them and being an example to them. And so I think something that we're really trying to focus on and we really have a heart for is, I guess, equipping our leaders to be consistent in youth ministry.
Yeah.
Because so many young people, like I said, they're struggling with their identity, with their mental health, who has God made me to be, struggling with things around their sexuality, looking for truth. And I think a lot of that journey that they can find, like, to heal and to get free from these things, it often comes in the form of a leader getting alongside them and walking the journey with them and being willing to do years with them, or however long it takes. 100%. And so I think that's something that we've really been trying to lean into. Yep. So I guess those are a few of the things that we're probably facing in New Zealand.
That's so good. Yeah. Recently I read a book, Pete Gregg's How to Hear God. Mm-hmm. His great one on how to pray, but how to hear God as well. And one of his opening chapters, he says, for every one person on the road to Damascus that has that Paul encounter on the road to Damascus, there's 10 road of Emmaus, where Jesus walked alongside them without really any big impact until their hearts started burning. And that's where the journey came. And I think we underestimate sometimes the compounding effect of just being there, being consistent, 100%. Be a consistent small group leader before you're a brilliant one, of just one kid turns up, or be consistent. Like, if we're fortnightly, weekly, monthly, whatever, just going, because there's going to be a time where you finally earned enough equity and trust that they say, hey, this is what's going on. Yeah, and all of a sudden you find yourself on that Emmaus road, their heart's burning, the word of God is coming alive to them. Yeah. Rather than giving up when the Damascus kind of experience doesn't happen. So true. Yeah, for sure. And I think a lot of young people now, they are struggling with consistent role models in their life. Yeah. I know that, I mean, our generation, one of the things that was coined was that we were the fatherless generation. There were more teenagers than ever coming from broken homes. Oh. And I think that's been really interesting to watch, is a lot of young people, either they've come from, they haven't known one of their parents or their parents, there's been a marital breakdown, or just that they don't have a close relationship. Their parents might be around, but they're not really present. Yep. And so young people are looking for someone to be like, man, I can look up to this person, be like what Paul said, to imitate as they imitate Christ. And so I think, like you said, you can never underestimate the value of just showing up for a young person consistently. And I think that's probably, in my opinion, one of the most underrated traits in leadership is consistency. Yeah.
Great.
Because I think my journey has just been, I just kept showing up. I probably wasn't the number one pick. I wasn't necessarily the guy that people would have just been like, yeah, you're the person that we would put on the platform or we'd put on the stage. But I was just like, well, I love God and I love young people and I just want to keep showing up for them. Yeah. And so, I think for me and some of the best leaders that I've seen and have been raised up have just been the ones who are like, well, I'm just not going to quit. I'm just going to keep going. Yeah. Like, I'm going to lead this small group through a difficult season. Like, okay, well, we're not seeing the fruit right now, but I'm going to keep praying and I'm going to keep showing up until we do, and believing in faith that it will come. Right. But I think for me, I've just realized, man, this is worth laying my life down for. Yeah. I want to see a new generation come to know Jesus, but that's going to take a bit of grit, and that's going to take a bit of, man, I've got to keep turning up. Yep. Even if I feel like I'm the only one, like, I've got to keep showing up. Yeah. And I could never state enough the value of that consistency and leadership.
Yeah. Well, that's Paul to Timothy, hey, of saying, entrust these things to faithful, not just talented. Or Like, totally. I'd love the charismatics. and the people that have all the cool factors and they're talented at everything, but that faithfulness, it gets you a bit further in that.
Yeah.
So mental health's the big one. Now, none of us are psychs, and it's hard to give
pretend
advice
we
on
are.
how
Yeah,
to-
yeah, exactly.
Not going to pretend, and sometimes I've found, especially lately, it being a big issue. A lot of pastors start dabbling in areas that we're not experts, and that's a hard line to find. So in youth ministry, how have you found helping people with like mental health is such a big thing, helping them or equipping your youth pastors, youth leaders on here are ways that we can talk about this and deal with this in a healthy manner, talking about identity and who we are in Christ, and how do we go about that without all of a sudden getting ourselves like fronting a judge for using the wrong kind of language or like getting shut down because like we got the news crew and pickets at the fence, like because we're not psychologists anymore.
Totally. Yeah, well, I think we've got to probably delineate the lines of what we're here to do and what we're not here to do. We're not here to be psychologists or professional health workers, but we are here to spiritually grow people.
Great.
And we've got to believe that the power of God, like I'll talk a little bit about the professional side of things because I do believe in getting professional support, like 100%. But number one, as a leader, we've got to believe that the power of God still works today to set free, to redeem, to heal. And his word is the only truth that we can base our lives on. And we have to consistently point young people to Jesus. Absolutely. But I think we've got to delineate the lines of, well, that's our role. We've got to point people to Jesus, pray for them because prayer works. God moves in prayer. Pray for young people, encourage them in the word of God, be a listening ear, support them. But then we've also got to realize, well, what we're not here to do is diagnose them. We're not here to give them professional advice of what they should and shouldn't do. But as the church, we can provide a bridge to that. We can connect them with people who can help them. And I think what we've been trying to do with our leaders is, number one, make sure they're clear on that. You don't have to, in fact, you shouldn't try and have all the answers. You should be faithful to what God's asked you to do, and that's to lead these young people closer to Jesus. But it can actually do more harm when you try to clinically or say, here's my thoughts on your diagnosis. Well, you don't know that. But what you can do is actually point them to Jesus because their primary identity is as a son or a daughter of God.
Yeah, great.
And so what we try to do is we help our leaders really differentiate between that. What's your role and what's not? Okay, and then you do what you can do, and we'll support you. We'll train you pastorally. We'll help you have conversations and give you tools like just ask more questions. But we want to also set you up with pathways so that if a young person does disclose something to you, well, number one, you need to talk to your pastoral leader. You need to make sure that you're accountable. But then also, if we can offer a link to a professional support person, we want to help you get that help for your young person. So something that we've been trying to do over the last few years, we've got this guy in New Zealand called Richard Black, who's amazing. He's a Christian psychologist and counselor, runs an organization called Mind Health. And he comes from an incredible Christian perspective, but works with a lot of non-Christian organizations, secular organizations, around the area of mental health and finding freedom, but also having tools to actually, walk this journey. And so he has done a lot of training with our youth leaders. And we have basically a list of support workers and counselors. So if a young person comes to a leader and is like, I'm struggling with this, or there's something that I'm being diagnosed with, I don't know what to do, we will say to them, we'll give them this list and say, here's some people you can refer them to. Because I think we want to equip our youth leaders as much as we can, not just spiritually, but also practically. Of course, spiritually, but also practically.
Yeah.
The next thing I'd say is where possible, obviously some circumstances mean that you can't, but we would encourage our youth leaders that you're not just pastoring these young people, but you're walking alongside their families too.
Great.
So the biggest thing we've found is sometimes youth leaders can get themselves into trouble when they're like, you've just told me this. Okay, this just stays between us. If I'm honest, you can't actually promise that, and it's not healthy to promise that. No. As much as I get it, you want to be their hero, but at the end of the day, you're not their savior. Like we can't be that. No. But we can say, look, I have to tell your parents, or I have to talk to your family about this, and I have to talk to a pastor. This is so I can help you as best that I possibly can.
Yeah. And in Australia, different states have slightly different laws.
Right.
Like we have mandatory reporting.
Yeah.
Yeah,
on certain
we would have
levels
the
of
same.
things,
Yeah, exactly. So they would have to file something to actually make a report. So one really practical thing that we would say to our youth leaders is, if a young person's like, hey, can we talk about something? If it's something that you're like, especially if it's like this could be quite heavy, just saying, hey, just so you know, and you won't need to say this every time, but just so you know, hey, just before you tell me this, I'm probably going to have to tell my pastor, and I might have to tell your parents. Are you okay with still telling me that, knowing that I will do that? Because then it puts it in their court to say, all right, am I all right with that? And they might say no, and then you might say, look, well, or even sometimes they've just told them, they've just kind of blurted it out and they've said it.
Yeah.
I would still say, look, I have to, and I'm really sorry, I can't promise you that this will just stay between us.
Yeah.
What I won't do is go and gossip about you and tell every person.
Yeah.
But I will tell someone who's above me so that I can be supported, and I'll make sure that those that are there to support you in your home are actually able to do that. So we would say work with the family, work alongside the family. So yeah, I guess those things, like, we've got to know what our role is and what our role isn't. Our role is to point young people to Jesus and believe that the power of God can set someone free in a moment.
Right.
Then we've got to get them connected with people who can help them on a professional level if they need it, and then get the family involved, get a support system around them, because young people, a lot of the time, they just need a group of people around them who are supporting them.
Yeah.
And so as much as we can play our part, I think it's also good to realize that youth ministry and the role of a youth leader is a small part of a bigger picture in a young person's life. And I think sometimes, we can sometimes think, oh, we're the only answer. Of course, the number one answer is to know God, but in that and in someone's journey, we're just playing a part in their overall health and their overall life. So what is the part that we can play, and then how can we support them in being a part of the wider, I guess, network?
Definitely. I think the risk a lot of youth pastors or leaders make is that they get like this mild Messiah complex. Or,
Yeah.
And they might not think it that way, but I know, like, we've talked in our youth ministry before of just having to remind, these kids aren't ours. Like, in that way, like they're parents. We can't be keeping secrets and like doing deals with kids without their parents involved, or turning them against. Like, if the parent doesn't want them here, it's the parent's call. And
exactly.
And we can't undermine all of these. Like, they're not ours.
And it might take longer, but the fruit will be better if you work with the family.
Yeah.
Like, I think sometimes we're like, well, if I get them to youth now and disregard other wishes of their family, then that's the win. But what if that has a longer term impact?
Yeah.
So I think it's actually better to go on the journey with the family, build trust.
100%.
Because when you get a family, like if a family's like, I'm supporting you as a youth pastor, the amount of backing and resource that you get as a youth pastor because you're doing the journey with the family is huge. We've had so many non-Christian families. At first, we're like, why is my son going to your youth group? Why are you a 20-something-year-old want to hang out with my teenage son? I was like, look, I get it. My parents were exactly the same. And I've always said to the young people, do not go against your parents' wishes.
Yeah.
If there is anything that you tell me, you have to tell your parents.
Yeah.
Don't tell me anything that you would not feel comfortable telling your parents.
Yeah.
Because for me, I've been there. I didn't grow up in a Christian home. I mean, God's done an amazing work in my family, but they were very reluctant to let me go to youth ministry. So I get it. Like, I get, and parents care about their kids. I understand that. And so I think, how can we get the family on board? And it might not be an immediate overnight, cool, now they're in youth every week, as much as we probably want that. Like, let's be real. We want young people to be in our youth ministry, and it's the best place for them to be, and that's where God's going to move in their life. But I've actually had to learn the hard way sometimes to just be okay. It might take 6 months of being like, all right, you're only allowed to come once a month, or I do need to sit down and have a chat with your parents, but that's okay. I'll do that, because long term, if your family trusts that this is a healthy environment for you to be in, they will be willing to let you be a part of it, whatever it looks like.
And I think working with that family, I'll piggyback, this one's probably hit a button for me, is working with the family. Like, the landscape has changed, like, significantly. I was talking to someone the other day, they're in education, that I'm friends with. He was saying, like, when they were younger, it was kind of like free range. Like, when I went to youth ministry, we'd do like flower bomb fights, but on the back of utes in a paddock in the middle of the night, throwing it from ute to ute. Like,
100%.
No risk assessment for that.
Yeah, we used to go grass sledding around fields. You like put it over the tow bar, you'd all jump on, you get towed around the field and
100%.
stuff.
How
It's the
good
best
was
thing
it?
ever.
Going
Like,
shooting, all sorts of things.
Yeah.
Oh
And
my
like,
gosh.
have you not done shooting at the youth yet?
No, not me personally.
Not in
yeah,
ours.
imagine the Rams forms for that.
not doing shooting in any of our youth ministries. But
Yeah, that's
like,
good.
and parents were just like, yeah, what else? And they just, what did you get up to?
Yeah,
They didn't know
yeah.
we went out and did
Totally.
that. Just what did you do? But he was talking about education of like when he got in trouble as a kid is like you got in trouble at home and then it started turning into like, oh, little Johnny's done this. Okay, can you give me more context of what Johnny did so we can work with you a bit more? He said it's gone from, and now more, not even helicopter parenting. He called them like snowplow parents, where it's just like, come in swinging. No way little Johnny did the wrong thing or that he said that or he's not,
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
And just straight off, like, you're in the wrong because my angel's perfect. That seems to be the temperature often of dealing with parents. Not here, or in case any parents of Highlands are watching, you're all
Definitely not.
perfect.
Definitely not, hey,
No.
never.
Yeah. But like definitely I've had those experiences. Merck's had plenty of those experiences already. So how do you work with families that in like the majority of them feel friendly?
Yeah, sure.
But seems to be a growing portion that feel like nearly hostile of they don't trust. How do you build that trust when they don't trust you?
Yeah.
Oh, that's yeah. I think that's it's a very real thing, and we've had to walk the journey with a lot of families. I think the first thing I'd say is we've got to be good at listening, because I think sometimes it's really easy. I've found, okay, I'm just going to justify myself, but the thing is, I'm not a dad yet, so I actually don't know what a parent is. You know, like that's their pride and joy. They love their young person,
Yep.
and so I have to come with a level of empathy and being willing to listen to the fact that, okay, right now, the reason they're feeling this certain way because of maybe a preconception idea that maybe they're worried about their kid, I totally get it. So I will always listen first and actually be like, rather than just being like, sometimes it's not actually that easy because you're just like, well, I want to tell you what we actually did and like why you're wrong. But if I'm honest, but actually that's not gonna be helpful in that situation because that parent maybe is stressing out about something or maybe is worried about this. So how can I listen and actually hear what's going on, why you were upset about that? If there is anything that I've done that I can take responsibility for, absolutely I'll own up to that.
Yep.
If there's something that I'm like, okay, cool, all right, I need to change that. I was like, I'm so sorry that that's been the case. Or even saying, hey, I'm so sorry that that's how it has been perceived. Because even though our intentions are always good, sometimes it's not perceived that way. So I'll always say, I'm so sorry that that's how that was perceived. Like that wasn't our intention, but I'm so sorry that we acted in a way that made it seem like it was. I will always just kind of, I guess, and ask these kind of questions. Well, what would be helpful for you as a parent? How can we better support you guys? Because most parents, like 99% of parents, well, all the parents that really love their kids and are invested in their lives, they want them to be around good people.
Yep.
Regardless of, I mean, it can sometimes be interesting, but regardless of whether they believe what they believe, you know, they're just like, well, this is at least good morally as in terms of an environment. So I've just learned to say, look, what can we do to actually help you? Or what maybe didn't go well that we could change? Because I think the more that I've tried to make excuses for stuff, it doesn't actually help. But sometimes parents will say something and they'll give me feedback and I'm like, that's actually a great piece of feedback.
Yeah.
We could actually really implement that. Cool, maybe we could. Like in my early days of youth ministry, we used to have so many parents on our case about like, I don't know what the plan is for my child this week with youth. And I was kind of like, well, it's just youth. Like we've got youth every week. But they want to know what's happening. What time do I need to drop them where? And so I was like, okay, cool. We used to just get bombarded with calls like, my kid doesn't know what's happening this week. Do you guys even care? And I was like, jeepers, well, we do. But then I said, look, well, maybe there's something in that. Parents are a lot more planned than a young adult is. I was 21 at the time. I was only just getting used to using my calendar to plan my life. These parents are calendarizing absolutely every second of every day because they've got multiple kids.
Yep.
So let's do some things to actually improve our communication. So what we did was we started a monthly parents email a newsletter. We did a weekly text, which was just like, hey, just give us your name and number. We would love to keep you up to date. Just a real brief. Hey, here's the 3 things or the 2 things that are happening for youth this week. Here's when you can drop your kids off, and that'll be great. and then we'll start a parents' Facebook chat so they can connect with one another.
Right.
Really practical things, but we just took on board some parent feedback and said, all right, we'll implement some stuff. And that was amazing because the parents that came in hot and were really strong, they suddenly felt, oh, we've been listened to.
Right.
And we didn't do much. Like we sent out a text. It was pretty generic. Hey, parents, this is the plan for your kid this week. Done. Immediately, Christian and non-Christian parents began to be like, this is awesome. I'm so stoked because I know what's happening for my kid this week, so I can plan. They were more willing to drop their kids off. They were more willing to help out with transport. And over time, we kind of built a relationship with parents so that when we needed to say, look, we want to host an after-church hangout or a small group, could we please use your home? There was a level of trust because we'd shown, okay, we've actually listened to feedback. Look, sometimes they'll tell us the 50 game ideas that they want for their for the youth ministry, and we say, "Oh, that's great," but we might not use those. Like, we'll run down. But then there are some things that parents do really offer that I'm like, man, this is valuable because they've got a level of wisdom and maturity because they've just done a bit of life. Yep. And so, what are the things that we can take on board? And so I think that's like a big thing for us. And then I think the other thing is, as much as I can, we encourage our youth leaders get to know your teenagers' parents personally. When they drop them off at youth, go and meet them at the car. Like we've had it's been a really amazing, like so many first generation Christians this year come through our youth ministry. But that has, posed some challenges because there are naturally parents being like, well, what's my kid going to? So we'll get our leaders, go meet them at the car when they drop the kid off at church, or when you drop them home after a Friday night, just, hey, I'll walk you in, knock on the, go and, hey, I'm your son's youth leader, just wanted to come and say hi. It's amazing what that does.
Yeah, that'd be great.
I remember when I first started going to youth, my mum wasn't a Christian at the time. And she was like, I don't know who this guy is that's hanging out with you. And so she was very skeptical. The moment she met my youth pastor, she's like, oh, he's awesome. He's a great guy. I trust you to go and spend time with him. Because it became like not just a name that you heard about, but you actually got to know them as a person.
Yeah.
So as much as we can, we encourage our leaders to, and I'll try and do it myself, is build a level of relationship so that it's not just like this person that there's always on the other end of the phone just being like, why are you doing this? There's a level of, okay, we've actually got a relationship so we can talk about stuff. Awesome. So that's kind of what I guess it looks like for us. And we've probably just learned a lot of it the hard way.
Yeah. Oh, that's so good. Merc, you got anything for me?
Oh, I've got one or two.
Nice.
Bringing it back to the mental health chat we were having a minute ago, I'd like to kind of take a different angle of that. As youth pastors, obviously stuff happens for us too. Obviously, there's mental health issues that we go through too. And even this morning in the AM service at Highlands, you were speaking a little bit about how in your early days of youth ministry, there was some anxiety stuff that you were going through. I guess it would be really great if you could speak into how do we as the spiritual heads of our youth ministries, when it isn't easy because of the valleys that we're walking through, how do we practically get help without bleeding on the wrong people?
Yeah, that's really,
bleeding
really
from
good.
like sharing from an open wound or anything like that. Would you speak into that for a minute?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I think, I think for us, we've been incredibly blessed over the years to have access to professional help and to, be able to resource to go to counsellors and see people. I'm aware that not every church has that level of access, but what we can do is in some way or another, I would hope, speaking for most youth pastors, you would have access to a mentor, be it your senior pastor or your location pastor. There'd be a level of like you've got someone pastorally that you can go to, even if it's someone in the church that has a lay kind of leadership role and you trust them. So I would say, I think that's a great kind of thing what you asked at the end about not bleeding on the wrong people, because man, those people when they're sharing, it's like, oh, you're still walking through this.
The hard thing is we have microphones.
Yeah, exactly. So
it's bleed in a sermon.
Yeah, totally. And it's very clear. And I think sometimes it's like, I think just really quickly, I think that sometimes it's a good kind of differentiation of like, you might not be fully through it, but when someone shares and it's like, man, this is how God began to work in it, you can see, okay, they're getting breakthrough. This is a healthy place. Where it's like, if they're still sharing in brokenness now, I don't know how I'm going to get through it. It's like, you should probably process this off the platform first. Yeah. I think just the first thing is find someone that you can share openly with, that you trust. So for me, I've always had someone who's been a pastor in my life, be it someone like Pastor John over the years, or my location pastor at the moment, where he would be very much, I'd be like, this is my pastor. And I think the thing is, I wouldn't wait for someone to ask me how I'm doing. If I am struggling, it is not up to someone to be able to figure out how I'm doing.
Yep.
Like, and I've got to be empathetic. Like, sometimes you're in the middle of something and you're like, oh, I don't even know if I've got the strength to talk or to share about it. It might be challenging, but you can't assume that your pastor is going to discern how you're going. There have been so many times where someone has come to me and shared something. I'm like, oh my gosh, I had no idea this is what you were struggling with. But I've found that, man, I've actually got to be proactive. Even if it feels like I haven't got any strength in me, I've got to start talking. I've got to say, even if I can barely put it into words and I have to unpack it as I share, I got to start talking about it. And I think that's probably where I'd start if you're struggling with something. The reality is we all will have seasons where it's difficult. But find one person, someone that's trusted, someone that you know will talk to the right people, not the wrong people, and someone who's a little bit further on the journey who can get you help or pray with you or encourage you, speak life into you. Because I think if we keep it, I think so often there's this kind of stigma in ministry that you need to keep going and just push all your problems to the side. I think I look at the life of David and I see a man who he often would confess to God, like, I'm struggling with these things were eating me up as I kept them inside. But then I brought them into the light and then I received breakthrough. So we've got to be okay to bring things into the light. So find someone, of course, bring it to God, number one, but yeah, find someone you can trust and be the one who initiates that conversation. Talk to your pastor. Can we catch up? Can we get a coffee? You've got a couple of hours. Make that time. I've always, when I've been in seasons where I'm struggling, normally my wife's just told me to do it, so that's good. I'm blessed, but I've always had to get to a point where I'm like, I got to text my pastor. Hey, can we get a coffee? Yeah. Or hey, can I come to your house? Have you got time this week? And then share openly. And then allow them to speak into your life. And then I would say, when you're feeling like, man, I don't know if I'm going to get out of this, I would just say keep just taking one step at a time. Because I think sometimes we think we have to get to the end result straight away, but sometimes it takes a process and a journey. But just keep being like, okay, cool, what's one thing I can do today? We've walked a leader through a big journey in the last kind of year or so. They're amazing, they're a great leader, but I'm so glad they came to us and said, we're struggling with this. And then we said to them, okay, cool. Well, number one, your personal health is our priority, because if you're healthy, then your ministry will be healthy. Yep. I think sometimes we think, oh, well, if I just keep going, it'll be all good, but it can be a hindrance to the ministry you're leading. So we've just said, well, what's one thing you can do today? Okay, cool. Well, today I just want to get in God's presence, or I just want to feel a sense of peace, or I just want to, talk to my leader about this, or I just, what's one thing? Okay, I just want to catch up with one teenager, and just take it day by day. So yeah, what I'd say, talk to someone, initiate it. Don't wait for them to talk to you, because then they'll be able, if you initiate it, that will open the door to be able to get support, to be able to get help, for them to know, man, I'm struggling. So they'll actually check in. How are you going in this thing? And then take it day by day. Just do one thing. Just say, look, this is one thing I want to get breakthrough in right now. It could be a small thing, but this is what I'm believing for God to do. And just keep taking steps, one step at a time.